It's time to get going. And so it's great to see everybody on as more people are jumping in here to our Clarity First conversation around some new trends in church architecture. Thanks for being here. I'm seeing folks from all over, Cincinnati, Lake Havasu, Arizona, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It's great to see such a great variety of folks here. Let me fire the keynote and I'll introduce myself. My name is Brian Rose. I'm Senior Lead Navigator at Auxano and host for the Clarity First Conversations. We get to do this once a month, really kind of bringing just some important, maybe, sorry, I'm having trouble on my end here getting a window to go away. All right, sorry about that, leaders. And we would love to drop your city name, your name, city, state in the chat, a little Q&A there. If you have questions that come up while we're walking through this, we'd love to see them there. Hopefully you guys have been able to see my friend Dave Milam. Dave Milam is VP of Strategic Design for Visioneering Studios. He is going to be joining us today. And listen, I love how Dave works. Dave brings energy. He leans in with pastors and really works to optimize really the problem solving in 3 dimensions, which is really what it's all about. Dave, introduce yourself and say hi real quick so we can.
Hey, this is Dave Milam from Dallas, Texas, and I'm an AT&T user.
Yeah, me too. It's kind of crazy. I'm going to blame my technology issues right now on AT&T. Is that all right?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate.
I'm going to blame my problems right now on it. Well, Dave, we're kind of jumping in here together. Visioneering Studios and Auxano, we've been kind of fast friends, close partners, strategically aligned for maybe 10 to 12 years now.
Yeah.
Bringing kind of both sides of kind of the form of church, kind of the physical 3D environment, and then kind of the vision, the language, the articulation of what it means to really do where we are. Tell us a little bit about Visioneering Studios and what you guys do.
Well, I love that because, I mean, if you even look at our name, Visioneering Studios, it like the best and I think most successful projects that we work on are the ones that are driven by vision. Not necessarily the ones who are like, we haven't done a project in a while. It'd probably be a great rallying point for our church. We should probably do something. And churches bring us in and they're like, listen, we don't know what we need to do. We just know we need to do something. But it's a very different experience when, let's say, Auxano has been involved and they've got a really clear vision frame. And now they're like, this is our vision and our building isn't adequate enough for us to chase after the vision that God's called us to. It's like those conversations, when it comes to architecture and church design, really accelerates like growth and intentionality and even the process when the church knows the vision, Yeah.
Well, and Dave, that's why kind of we've like felt really kindred spirits.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
Because, that's our kind of Clarity First posture is, hey, yeah, I mean, you may need to do some things in the built environment, but
right.
Are you clear on why? There was this kind of trend in the 80s, 90s, if we build it, they will come. It's kind of a misrepresentation of the Field of Dreams quote. And it actually worked when there was nothing else for people to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
When there was nothing else for people to do, build a big gymnasium and people will show up for that, or build something big and do that. But now what we're finding is just because you build it doesn't mean they're going to come, right?
And if you do build it and they do come, the next church down the road who builds it next, they'll go to that one because they're always moving toward new and gravitating toward new. So you've got to have a vision and a stickiness that if they do come when you build something, that the vision is what captures them, not the building.
And full disclosure, my undergraduate degree is in architecture, and I was in the field for 5 years before going to seminary and full-time ministry. So I kind of have a little bit of even more energy toward this conversation because every church I was a part of came to that moment with we need to build something. And there were times when I was a little frustrated because it was like, well, do we know why we're doing this, or do we just think we should because it's just the next new thing?
Yeah.
And so that's why I love you guys, because David, it is real easy to just go as an architecture a designer, a firm, construction, all the things you guys do, the design, build, kind of management side. It is kind of just kind of like, yeah, tell us what you want and we'll draw it for you, versus going, okay, how does what you want meld with the vision that God has given your church? And then how can we best express that in a way
Gosh, Brian, I could just go on and on. Like, let me just tell you, most architects are like, they're like waiters, like I have never been to a restaurant where the waiter has come up and said, "Hey, listen, before we order, what's your budget for this meal?" And and then they help guide your order based on your budget. That typically doesn't happen, because usually the waiter just shows up and says, "Hey, give me your order and I'll bring it to you." And that's actually how most architects work. So,
well, I also need to say that I love architects and I have a lot of friends who are architects. And so I just do think, though, that, most times when there's a big miss, it's because the client has asked for a lot of things. And, as an architect, all you can do is just draw what's been asked for. So, I have been to that meal. I was actually out with a pastor on an interview, and when the check came, he was really blown away at how much it actually cost, like physically, like leaned back and leaned over and showed his wife how they were interviewing me for a job. And he obviously had ordered without knowing. He ordered off the specials, right? Yep. Where it was like, hey, this is the special of the day, not knowing exactly how much it cost. And so, that I think is exactly what you're describing, is sometimes if you're not confident of this is why we need what we need, then, it's easy for just, an architect designer to just draw what you're talking about. And so I love that's why I love you guys, because from the jump, you're leaning in and really dialing in of, hey, this is how this helps you accomplish your vision and meet the needs of the church. So that's why we're talking about today. I think there's some new rules of thumb for church architecture. We're building this off of an article, Dave, that you guys wrote. We're going to send it in a follow-up email along with the keynote, along with a link to the recording. But what inspired this, top 8 trends? We're not going to cover all 8 today, but what inspired this article?
Yeah, what's really crazy is, like, this whole webinar is entitled New Rules of Thumb. So I feel like, Brian, we didn't even talk about this, but I feel like even as a moment, I should probably just whip out really quickly the old rules of thumb, because there are rules of thumb that churches and pastors use. Like, for example, you'll need a 2-to-1 parking ratio. So for every seat in the auditorium, for every 2 seats in the auditorium, you need 1 parking spot. Typically you can get 100 seats for every acre of land that's buildable that you have. Usually if you're getting ready to build a new building or move, and you want offices and lobby and groups rooms and all the things, you're looking at somewhere around 50 square feet per seat in the auditorium. But if you're doing launching a campus, and you want to do minimum viable product with like worship, kids, and lobby, and that's it, then you're probably looking more at 36 square feet per person. So there are some natural rules of thumb that we typically follow. But what we do, we work with about we start about 50 brand new projects and envision 50 new projects about that a year. And so in some ways we get to cross pollinate. We see what the churches are doing and what the trends are, what trends are starting to really gain traction. And we have the benefit of just being in the weeds across the country all the time. And so usually sometime around once a year, we want to just like, what are those trends, and what are the things that we're starting to see that are really starting to gain some momentum, and highlight those. And I think that's super beneficial, even as just marking where you guys are, to see if are we in line with the trends, or are we not,
That's great. Yeah. And I love the kind of the freshness, as I've seen the whole list, and kind of focusing on 4 of them today.
Yeah.
I know this is invaluable to the leaders. We're here. Here's one thing that kind of prompts me to this, Dave. It's really, this is kind of for our posture and our heart as Auxano, and I know you guys meet us in that at Visioneering. If we're going to reach generations who are becoming increasingly disconnected from the gospel, then our buildings must become increasingly connected to the Great Commission calling of the church. Our buildings literally cannot afford to not use every part of our building toward the Great Commission calling we have as a church. And I was with
the church just yesterday, Brian, and we were walking the space, and he looked at me and said, "I want every square inch of this building to move the gospel forward." and we were standing in a storage room at the time. So um, it we've got some work to do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, here's what I love. I love. We're going to get into it. It's not just the square footage inside the building. It's the square footage outside, and as we use those as sending points, launching points into the community, and really as kind of landing spots for the community. Like I think this is important. And for us, Oksana, our heart is, do you know what your Great Commission calling is locally? Like, because it's hard. We're going to see some cool pictures and some of those things. And it would be real easy to just go, oh, we need to do this, and we need to do this, we need to do this. If we don't know what that looks like locally, then it could just be another Field of Dreams kind of mistake of just like, well, let's just build something and they're gonna come do it. Let's look at the first trend. We'll just jump right in here. Look at the first trend. The first trend is next level security. Now, church security in the children's ministry has always been a question. I think we're entering into that next level security stage. Here's some kind of bullets there, stepping up safety game. Talk to us about this first trend, Dave.
Yeah, what we've noticed is, like, I think in the 90s and early 2000s, when we talked about security, I think it's when we started like doing name tags and checking kids in and out, that's somewhere around there. We were really starting to get concerned about, the wrong parent picking them up, or a kid going missing, Right. So that was really our biggest safety concern. But these days, when we're looking at design and analyzing space, we're also looking for, like, is there active shooter safety happening? And we're not security professionals, but there are some common things that we try to do that you really want to be able to use as you secure your building. For example, if there's an active shooter that happens, let's say in the lobby or outside, or something goes down, what you want, like the ideal, is for one set of doors to be able to close and all of your kids' ministry is secure. Okay. If, for example, you've got one of these designs where you've got this long hallway with the classrooms on the right and left, and then there's an active shooter situation, then you're now in a situation where somebody's got to run down and make sure all those hallways and all those doors are closed and locked, and it's just not quick. So you kind of almost want to treat it like the submarine, that's sinking. You need to quarantine, or maybe it's a boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even, but you want to be able to lock off the part that is where there's danger, and secure everybody else. Whether that's the worship center, whether that's kids ministry, you want to make sure that you can do it that way for sure.
Well, I know a lot of us are in kind of churches that works great.
Yeah.
If we're building from the start that way.
Yeah.
But many of us have buildings that have grown up almost like sedimentary rock. You can kind of see the different generations of construction, some of those things. And what are some things that you guys might suggest if someone is spread out to up the safety game, not just for active shooter, but just to be safe? Is there something you guys do or help churches think about in that way?
Yeah, I think there's something that you can actually do. Like, if you got like a PDF of your building layout, and then you took some colored markers and you said, let's say pink is all our kids' areas, and then you basically colored in the classrooms that are all kids, and then maybe students is one color and adults are one color, and you just kind of labeled it. What you really want to have is clear districting. Like, all of our kids' area is one area, all of our adults' area is in another area, and all of our student area is another area, and there's no blur. When you start having a blur, like if you start looking at your map and there's like colors everywhere, then first of all, it's hard to navigate as a first-time guest. But second of all, it's really hard to think through safety and security measures. So that's an activity that you guys can do that really just is super enlightening and super helpful.
And also will upset some adult Sunday school teachers who've been in the same room for 40 years. But
the other thing I want to mention is think of security for your kids almost like a bank vault. Like, if you wanted to, I'm not recommending it, but if you wanted to rob a bank, you have to go through several layers of protection to get to the actual vault. You got to go through the parking lot, then you got to go through the front door. Then there's the teller counter. You got to get past that. And typically there's another door you have to get past, and then you're at the gate. So if there are a number of stops or there's a buffer between, let's say, the safe where the money is and the car, then there's a higher likelihood that you're going to be able to protect what's valuable.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
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 Oh
And
yeah.
key cards, camera systems, technology,
Sure.
that stuff is some things that you could even go into after the fact, even if you do have a complicated, building, some of those things are easily added in there. Tell us about Mesa Church Irvine, Dave. I know this is one of your projects.
Yeah, this was a real, I mean, this is an amazing project. This was a portable church that was just getting it really in their first building. And so that's just, man, there's something about that. And so this is their kids check-in area. It's super simple, but what you can see is there's check-in, but there's also one entry point into the kids area, and so they're able to lock it down as well. Yeah, here's another one. You can just see like there's check-in, and then there's the doors that can close and lock everything up. So super secure, super great. This is Radiant Church in Cedar Rapids.
What I love here that I see too, that Dave, I know you guys are really, really good at is really using every available inch of wall space with graphic, some of those things. And that's actually really economical design right there, right?
Yeah.
And flexible design. And so I love that, you guys do that.
Yeah. The ideal is, let's say a mom is bringing a little 4-year-old with her to church and they've never been there before. The 4-year-old who can't read should know where their space is. They should be able to walk in the lobby and go, that's where I want to go, and naturally just know that this is my space. So that's really what we try to aim for as much as we possibly can.
I love seeing too, when I'm in a church hallway that's a kids ministry hallway, where all the pictures and stuff on the walls are at the 2-foot level, not the 5-foot level.
Yep.
Right. Because it's really who's there. Let's look at this next one. This one excites me the most as a navigator who we talk about worship being kind of the primary environment. And in most places that still is true. And then it's like, hey, we want people in community. We want people to do this. And then there's adult education environments. You say it's not your grandma's Sunday school. And there's a little bit of a revival of the on-campus small group setup. Talk to us about that, Dave.
Oh my goodness. What's been crazy is, as I've talked to churches across the country, I think it's this unsaid secret. I think nobody talks about it, but it's so real. Back in the 80s and 90s, like the whole small group boom really started to take place, and then apparently Willow Creek was incredibly successful with it. And so everybody started to do the small group, which was a huge win because now I don't have to leverage lots of dollars to build classrooms. Right?
Willow Creek, Saddleback, North,
all of them. Yeah.
Models at that time were saying, let's go off campus.
But you know what's crazy? As I go, again, I'm talking with hundreds of churches a year.
Yeah.
They're all telling me that they can't seem to get small groups to really work. Right. Like front facing. Oh yeah. Small groups are amazing. It changes lives. But I mean, really, it's just, especially for the young couples with like ankle biters and little toddlers in their family, going to a house where there's sometimes the kids outnumber the adults. It's just, if you could even crack open the Bible once without an interruption, I mean, that's just a great night. So there may be some churches out there, and occasionally we run into them, that are like, small groups are killing it. We've got 90% of our, Sunday morning attendance in small groups. And there are those churches out there for sure, but the majority are really struggling. And so we're starting to see this trend toward, you know what? Let's just call it, we've got them for a block on Sunday morning, and it's easier to get them for an extra hour on Sunday morning than it is for them to come out on a Monday night or Tuesday night or Wednesday night. Plus, we've already got built-in childcare. So let's go ahead and leverage it and do our small groups on Sunday morning when they already have childcare. And let's not set up these typical lecture style Sunday school classrooms, but what if we had space, like a hallway of just like living room environments? Yeah. That just looks amazing, Yeah. And we're starting to see that happen.
It's almost like the model was the right model, to be in a relational, not transactional. They don't need another lecture. They just got a lecture,
Right.
but a relational environment that was the right model at home, but it was the wrong location for many families, especially young families,
Yeah.
because I know of a pastor who stood up and said, look, we've tried reimbursing childcare, we've tried putting childcare up here, we've tried, doing all these things, and it's just, I'm tired of pretending that off-campus groups work for young families.
That's exactly what I'm hearing, Brian. It's like everybody seems to be pretending that it works. And
Yeah.
again, I'm not
Kind of
saying it doesn't work.
gaslighting ourselves until it actually does work. Like if we just try a little bit harder,
Nobody wants to say they're failing at small groups, but
yeah.
you know.
Now there are situations where, also like regional churches. I know I've got a friend on here who's in the Cincinnati area, and their church is a very regional church. Right. I was with a church in the Nashville area this week working on their vision clarity process. They're a very regional church. And so it doesn't even make sense in that trend to say, hey, if we're regional, if people are driving 25, 35, 45 minutes, then capturing the time we have while they're here on campus and while we have great, not just childcare, but children's ministry happening, there's a great way we can facilitate that. By the way, midweek is not dead. These adult education living room settings, if you can put parents in a group on Wednesday nights or midweek while their kids are in great ministry environments, I promise you'll start to see engagement go up because they know their kids have great environments. You're giving them time to be with other parents and really leaning around God's word. I mean, it's really kind of fun to see this, Dave. I'm glad
and this, Brian, I think we even have it. New Vision in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, really just said, we're going to put our money where our mouth is. Oh, there's North Central. There's like a great group environment. Looks great.
Yeah.
But yeah, New Vision in Murfreesboro, they said, we're going to put our money where our mouth is, and we're going to build an adult education building. And it's honestly one of the first of its kind. These guys are groundbreaking in every way. They're like, the group's building is basically going to be an entire building of just living room environments, along with a really cool rooftop deck that I think is amazing.
I think we got a little animation. There's the
look at that. Yeah.
That's kind of the rooftop. And then what you're saying here, I think they have like 24 of these living rooms really focused specifically on young families. I think they're prioritizing families with young children because that's really where the big need is. And so it's not a classroom environment. I love the porches and love the kind of the modularity of it.
I think likely in most churches, there's one or two rooms that you could really go, you know what, let's really change this room or this environment and turn it into a great living room environment. You even know in your church when you have meetings or you have like impromptu staff meetings, like you get a couple of people together, you guys naturally gravitate toward those environments to meet, So if you could leverage a couple of spaces or rooms in your building just to do that, I think you'd start to see those rooms would be in high demand.
Yeah. I love it. I love that terrace space too, because some groups like to meet out there, right? Get the fire pit out.
Yeah.
Really good. Let's look at the next trend here. And I think that kind of bleeds in that terrace space, the layered lobby. Help us understand the layered lobby extending beyond the building.
Well, I think we've just, we've really taken a play out of the retail market. Like if you go to like a Walmart and you do all your shopping and you've got your cart, and usually you don't go to the checkout until you know you have everything, right? So you have everything and you think, now I'm going to check out. You go to the checkout line, and if you'll notice, and you've noticed this before, on the left and right as you're checking out are those shelves. They've got the tabloid magazines, they got the gum, they got all those last minute, one more shot for them to get your dollar.
Yeah. Spontaneous purchase. Kind of things.
Yep. And so we've kind of stolen that play, and but we're not after dollars, we're after relationship, right? We want people to connect. So what happens is when people have that moment where they're like, okay, I'm done, I'm ready to go to my car, if we can create this great outdoor green space with some outdoor furniture, some play equipment, and I can just slow the walk to the car just by even 2 or 3 minutes, And not because it's crowded or we're holding them hostage in the parking lot, but genuinely because they walk outside and they pause, or their kid runs to a slide. And it's in the way of, it's like in between the building and the parking lot, then almost like that retail, like last minute purchase, there's this possibility that maybe on the outside, I can slow them down enough that maybe they have one more conversation. They connect with one more person. And maybe even somebody says, hey, I didn't see you earlier. How about let's go to lunch? Otherwise, if that little buffer, that layered lobby isn't there, as soon as they exit your building, they're gone.
Right. It's like exiting the mall and you're in the parking lot.
Yep.
Now.
You're done.
Right?
You're done.
Yeah.
You're done.
It's funny. One of the things early on that I loved about visioneering the way you guys think is, we were trying to rebelling against kind of the mall mentality of church architecture, where it's like you slap the building in the middle of a sea of parking, but it's really how, how do you engage people, with the built environment so that it does create,
Brian, what's, like, this John Parker, our CEO, was a former Disney Imagineer. He built Soarin' over California, Grizzly Rapids, part of downtown Disney. He's so good. And what's so fun is to go to lunch with him every once in a while, because, we may just be sitting there eating tacos, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, he'll say something like, hey, do you know why we built California Adventure? And I'm like, no, I actually have no idea. Tell me why you guys built California Adventure. And he said, what was interesting is at the time, the Disney execs did a study and realized that the average length of stay for the guest of Disney was 0.7 of a day. And then they asked the question, what would it take for us to do an average length of stay over a day? And so the game plan was, we're going to build this theme park on a parking lot. And actually, when it first opened, it was considered the worst theme park ever created. They added some Disney hotels, and they added downtown Disney. And once everything opened up, he said they were averaging 1.7 of a day, which, if you're Disney, that just means you made a whole lot more money, right?
A lot more money.
Yeah, you double. Yeah, totally. But if you're the church, and let's say your average service is an hour long, like on the clock, an hour long, and we're all laughing.
Yeah.
And
that's what it's supposed to be. The pastor comes
exactly
hour 10,
and
hour, right.
And let's just imagine the average length of stay for the guest was hour and 5 minutes. Like, I know everything I need to know about that guest experience. They showed up a little late.
Yeah.
They dropped off their kids. They left, and they didn't really talk to anybody. But if I can get them to stay an hour and 15 minutes, and not because, again, we're holding them hostage in the parking lot or they can't check out their kids, but genuinely because they wanted to stay and connect, I have increased the likelihood that they're going to make connections and eventually end up in somebody's there's Long Hollow. Like, look at that one.
You're talking about this, and I think this is like a perfect image of what you're
saying.
Right,
you leave the church service here, that environment slows you down, but in a good way. It's not transactional. It like begs you to stay just at least for a couple more minutes and talk to somebody.
Yeah. And as you pointed out, this is probably some of the least expensive square footage to develop.
It's about a third of the cost of a new building. So it's just like, and it's some of the most game-changing space that you can do.
And even if it's a little chilly outside,
new vision.
It's another great. This is another kind of outdoor, kind of layered lobby space there. One of the messages came to me directly. It's a sign as well. It's a sign, that because people driving by see people rather than just a big building.
Yep.
And so, I think that's a great, a great piece of. Let's get to the last one here. A church office makeover.
Oh my goodness.
A balanced approach everyone will love. Talk to us about what's going on with church offices right now, because we've kind of been through the phase. I think this is in offices in general everywhere, right? We've been through the phase of scattered, and now it's like, well, we need to come back, but good grief, do we need ping pong? I saw an article pop up today. It's like no more ping pong tables and stuff like that in offices. What's going on here, Dave?
Well, it's been this like everybody struggled with it because again, we're going back to 70s and 80s. Everybody had a private office. So if you even had a part-time children's ministry, they had a 12 by 12 executive office that they could do their little thing in. And what that does is it really starves out collaboration.
Yeah.
And then Google showed up, and all of a sudden everybody was like, we need this open collaborative environment. So people knocked down the walls, and they had this open collaborative environment that was like very rich in distractions.
And
like nobody could ever get anything done.
Introverts all were like, I'm out. My wife would have stayed home, right?
The finance people were like, I'm going to work from home. This is just not going to work for me, And so what we've done, and I don't know if is there a link to this in the article that we posted, but I wrote an article about the 10 office districts that you would want in any office. And obviously
it's send that link out.
Yeah, we'll send that link out. It's size dependent. So if you have like 2 people on staff, you don't need all 10, right?
Right.
So usually it's, I think, 2 environments for every so many full-time equivalents, whatever the article is. But a healthy, balanced office design is more of a balanced approach. So you do want some private offices. You do want some phone booths. You want like a main street. You want, maybe we even call a library a place that you can.
Wait, a church library? Are those coming back now?
No, stop. Oh, Amazon killed the library. Amazon killed your library. Don't do that. But yeah, like we call it the library because it's like back in the day when people would go to the library, it was like, be quiet, you can't talk here. This is a study place,
Okay.
So it's still a collaborative environment, but you can't go and talk and be, talk on your speakerphone like people do. Oh, there's Lifeway.
Yeah. You guys did the Lifeway headquarters, right? Is this an example?
Yep. This is it. Yeah, the Lifeway teaming space. And if you ever able to go, it's super great because, I mean, some of you know that their previous building was downtown Nashville, and it was like 7 or 8 stories and a ton of square footage. And what they found was you could show up to work, and it was so spread out that you might not even see people during the day, But if you go to this new space, it forces collaboration, but it's a highly productive workspace. You can walk through and see all 10 environments in action happening right in the space. So what we're looking for in officing is balanced environments. Some people will need private offices. Some people will just need a place to land because they just are touchdown, and some people will just need a desk.
Yeah.
And you got to figure out who needs what,
Yeah. Yeah. And I was going to ask what can a church learn from something like this with the Lifeway offices?
Yeah. Here's the thing. Usually the square footage footprint that an office takes up in a church space is way more than they need.
Mm-hmm.
So often what we can do is look at the church footprint and determine, how can we knock out a few walls and create maybe 2 or 3 or 4 of these office districts in this footprint and just be more efficient with the space?
Yeah, because even if you need a private office, maybe not everybody needs a private office all the time.
Right.
Maybe there is a pastoral study, but maybe that there's shared office space and things. I know for Lifeway, Ben Mandrell, CEO and president, doesn't even have a private office.
Yeah. And if they're Gen Z, they just don't even want to work from the office. They just want to work from home the whole time.
This is Thrive Church. Tell us what we're looking at here.
I just did a dig and no one even noticed it. Sorry. Thrive Church. Oh yeah, this is Thrive Church. This is, you can start to see some of their office spaces. There's this collaborative kind of a meeting space, kind of a warm up. What we've noticed is, see that little couch area, if you have a couple of those spaces in your office area, what happens is, those breaks between meetings that you have where you kind of just walk out and get coffee and you need to take a breath. There's a lot of collaboration that happens in those 2 or 3 minute breaks, you know? And when you have space like that, you can sit down and just take the break. Someone will walk up and say, "Hey man, I've been meaning to talk to you. Is there any chance that we can talk about blah?" And you can do that in 2 or 3 minutes and be done. So these type of spaces are just amazing.
When I was in leadership role on church staff, it was always one of the things that I tried to do is kind of walk the halls and But when
Yep.
everybody's in their own office, you almost feel like you're kind of barging in on something to just go kind of
Yep.
that management by walking around. So if everybody's in these little districts, you can kind of tell who's got the noise canceling headphones on and is really dialed into something, and who's
Yeah.
kind of working on something over here. So I kind of love that, Dave, the idea there. There's other kind of more aesthetic trends that are kind of less vision driven that are in this article. So I love that you guys are making that available. And
You're killing me. They're all vision driven. They're all vision
know
driven.
they are, but I'm like,
We're visioneering studios.
Paint color's not our audience, for the Clarity First conversation. Maybe
Okay,
it is.
fair enough.
Maybe it is. But I knew that you and I could probably talk for 3 hours, and if we did all 8, we would run through them and stuff.
Though so. I would actually argue that probably, let's see, we've got 46 people on the call.
As soon as I said it, I was stepping
over in. Half have probably been asked if we can paint the brick white. Yeah. Over half of this crew has been asked that question and has had to figure that out.
Huh? Put shiplap on the wall, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's bring it back to this, because as kind of, I see a couple of questions in the Q&A, and maybe something here is spurred a question. Jump in there in the chat and drop that in there. We'll get to that here in a second. But I really feel like this is where I want to start and finish with this conversation, Dave, because it's not just, hey, we need to do something new. We need to do something different. It's really like, hey, how are we bringing back connection to the Great Commission calling the church? How are we driving it back to this is what we're here? And I love this idea because, what I learned in architecture in my training was what Louis Sullivan said, great Chicago architect, revolutionized American, like truly American architecture, rooted up there in Chicago area. Form follows function. And I kind of put a line through that and say form follows vision. Like if you are clear on your vision, then the form, even existing form, renovation, coming back in and making the best use of it. Like we need to reflect the mission. How do our buildings, how do our environments reflect the mission? Like really point people outward to this Great Commission call. How do they reveal our values? You make decisions. We've seen examples of churches you guys have used that values are revealed in that. They facilitate strategy, obviously helping move from worship to groups and serving and some of those things. Like there's this kind of this idea there, or they celebrate our outcomes. Hey, this is what success looks like. Great group rooms celebrates this calling. Hey, we're called to make disciple makers, and that's happening in these rooms over here. And lastly, it just kind of fuels our vision. It just really pumps life into that. When I put these up here, and this is a very Oxano kind of perspective on this, Dave, any thoughts on that? We're so uniquely, tied together on that. I just wanted to put this in front of you, see if it.
Yeah. Here's what I think churches intuitively know. Sometimes when pastors come or staff shows up, they inherit the building that they've got,
Right.
And so what they have to do is they have to make their building work. So what's amazing to me is how church leaders are just able to do that. And sometimes the vision kind of morphs around the structures that are already there because just that's what we've got. And we can't fix it. And if there's a moment in your church's life where you can say, you know what, we're going to put a stake in the ground here, and this is our vision. And if our building doesn't support the vision, then we're going to fix it and make sure that it supports the vision.
Right. Sorry. I'm trying to get back up in the chat to see. There's a question about how much are you seeing actually new construction versus renovated, like how much is purely add-on or new versus churches that just have an existing space they need to make the highest and best use of. Is there
I would say it's about half and half. Okay. There was a season when we weren't seeing much new construction, but we're starting to see it now. And somebody said this about 15 years ago that this would happen, and I'm starting to actually see it. The smaller churches, the ones that are really struggling to kind of maintain viability are getting revived by larger churches who are doing campuses. And so those larger churches who can support it and make the changes are doing campuses. And we're seeing a lot of movement around campus work that's starting to happen. And usually when you inherit a campus, you always go for minimum viable product. You don't go and blow it out It's not a
Right.
good multiplying strategy to
We
blow
don't
out a
have the
campus.
ability to do that
Yeah.
financially,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. So usually it's we come in, we want to renovate and make this the most effective space it can be. And then, if it grows and it starts bursting at the seams, then we'll throw money at it and see if we can try to get it to grow some more. So
Yeah. See if it's yeah, workable there.
yeah,
I know I've seen some instances where just even a little like graphics, environmental graphics, even lighting, even just doing
yeah,
some better lights changes everything,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I don't want to give away any of our other trends, but man, LED lights these days like do all kinds of crazy things. And churches are really starting to leverage some of that technology on the exterior of the building and interior of the building to just do some really great stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Well, here's one last thought, Dave, and then I'll let you have a closing thought before we go. I'm not seeing any other questions pop in, but if there is, then we're happy to jump in there. Many times I'll walk into a church that's in a proximity of brand new homes, brand new neighborhoods,
yeah,
those things, and they're not reinvesting in. So their carpet is 40 years old, and their screens are 3x4 and dim, dim like my phone at night. Um, and people have walked across or maybe even driven, less than a mile from, multi-$100,000 home with 80-inch LED screens, and they kind of, there's this cognitive disconnect. Not that that's what is required for the gospel, but there is kind of like when we reach people, there's kind of like this disconnect there. Any thoughts on that? I mean, it's kind of an obvious, not a really good question, but I want to kind of,
yeah. I several years ago, I walked into a Target, and Walmart even did it too. I walked in, and I remember I was just trying to get paper clips,
yeah,
and so I went to where the office supplies area was, and they had moved everything. And I'm like, why are you moving? Like, where do I need to find the paper clips? I just want to find the paper clips, right? And they scrambled the inside of the store. And I couldn't figure out for the longest time why they did that. And then I realized that the retail world knows that if I'm going to keep getting your dollar,
yeah,
I have to keep reinvesting in my facility. I have to keep it up to date. And occasionally I have to scramble a little bit so that it feels brand new.
yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to go to the next store down the street who has the new thing. And so if you'll notice Target, Walmart, basically, even if you go to a mall, they have forced renovation schedules. So they're forced to renovate the inside of their store every so many years so that the entire mall stays relevant.
And it's
And so
not,
if the retail world is doing that,
yeah. Well, but it's not for marketing or for sales in as much as it is, that's just how people think and
yeah,
operate. It's
yeah,
responsible. And so we can talk all we want about, well, let's just, these guys are just pushing marketing things or sales things or something like this and commoditizing the gospel. No, that's how people are wired. And we've
yep,
always been called to be responsive to people with the gospel message, and not
yep,
just forcing, well, you should understand this and you should get past our stained 40-year-old carpet, if you really love Jesus. And it's like, some people actually can't because
yeah,
they're wired that way. Like, well, how do I trust you with faith if you can't clean your carpet?
yeah,
Kind of,
yeah.
I don't know. That's just a personal, maybe that's another webinar. Dave, thank you so much for the conversation in
So
here,
fun.
jumping in here. I know you and I again could kind of go on for hours and lose everyone in the who's watching us right now, but we're thankful everyone has taken some time to join us. Any closing thoughts before I kind of give one more housekeeping note as we go, Dave?
Yeah, like my challenge to you, I mean, you may be in the middle of a building project or a renovation project or something like that. Sometimes when we think of building or renovation projects, we think millions and millions and millions of dollars, which can happen for sure. But I think that there are some strategic looks that you can be taking at your building and your facility and even your people flow and making small improvements over the course of time that really make a difference long term, And so if you haven't made any changes to your facility in a while and it's feeling very stale or maybe out of date, my challenge to you is just do something, And if you need to talk to somebody. I'm happy to help out as much as I can, but I'm just saying, like, there's movement that can be made, even if you're not spending millions and millions of dollars.
I love that. Thanks, David. Listen, everyone, you're going to get follow-up emails with links to the recording of this. Both articles will be linked in those follow-up emails, and a way to reach out to Visioneering Studios directly. You can also reach out to us directly if that vision piece, that Clarity First vision piece, is the first step you need before you invest in the building. We're here to help, and we'll, of course, bring Visioneering Studios right along in that conversation, because we love what they do and how they do that. So thanks everyone for a little bit of time this afternoon. God bless you. And may the Lord bless you and keep you in this Lenten season, and looking forward to seeing how God's going to use everything to his glory, even buildings.